If you'd like to make a call, please hang up and try again. If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator.
It's a rainy day here at the Dogeared Page channel, and me and Tobie are getting together to talk movies. It's the Film by Film podcast about the odd film or two you've seen. This week we're talking about 2020's The Call, starring Shin Jong-seo and Park Shin-hyo. It's going to be a fairly spoiler-free episode, so if that's okay with you, continue on, and I'll see you on the other side. I've been picking away at Star Trek.
Really?
Yeah, I've watched like the entire original Kirk series
Oh wow, good hell.
over the last few months.
That's quite a feat.
I've never watched it before. It was. I think I was just too young when it came on. It was a bit dull. It was a bit too old and antiquated, but pretty fun this time around.
My dad absolutely loves it.
Yeah, I can see why it was a hit, especially when you look at the other stuff that was around out then. It's funny looking at all the criticism of the new films. I actually think they were spot on with a lot of stuff. It just doesn't feel good now. Like those guys will womanize and sleep their way across the galaxy in the old TV show.
Yeah.
It's pretty much pick a character to be the guy who sleeps with someone this episode. Scotty, Chekhov, Captain, even Spock gets involved.
Yeah.
They get laid.
Oh, the times.
Yeah. But I've jumped now. I'm on to Deep Space Nine, which is a dramatical difference.
Yes.
But I'm loving it. Again, as a kid, I did watch the current ones when I was a kid. And this was always the one with a slow start.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a bridge. I watched it because it was on, and normally there was nothing else on, but it was always like, this one.
Yeah.
But as an adult, I'm kind of enjoying it.
Really?
Like they're pushing the sort of mini politics, and it's more interesting, and that's what I've been watching recently.
Nice. So recently, this is what we're going to briefly discuss and give a lowdown for. But this film I saw on Netflix, and I highly recommend it before we even start, because I thought it was very good. It's a film called The Call, and it is by a director, Lee Chung-hyun.
Okay.
And it's based on a British Puerto Rican film called The Caller from back in 2011. When I worked in Bath College, I was a lecturer there. One of the film challenges I gave my media students was to devise a story based around the idea that they pick up a random phone and there's a call from someone telling them to do something, and something will happen if they don't. And that was all they were given, and then they had to go and write and shoot a short film based around that central idea. So it's always intrigued me what would happen if a call was taken by someone, i.e. myself, or from a random person with a demand, which is kind of what this film is about, but it does a really clever way of setting it all up. Set in 2019, a 28-year-old Kim Sung-young loses herself travelling to visit her sick and strangled mother in a rural area. Arriving at her rundown childhood home, she finds a decades-old cordless phone, and through it receives a call from a distressed woman who says she's being tortured by her mother. After investigating the house, Si-young figures out that the woman on the phone, Oh Yong-suk is her name, is living in the same house but in 1999. So what's that? That's 20 years earlier.
Oh, we're sort of...
And the two are able to communicate across the time through the phone and exchange information about their lives. And then Young-suk is orphaned and is living with her adoptive mother, who is a shaman. So this is the woman in 1999. And then Seung-young lost her father in a fire that she blames her mother for, Young-si. And that's the basic synopsis.
That is the conceit.
That's all I know, all I knew about it going into this film, okay? So what do you think, based on that, what would be your predictions for where this is going to go? What direction do you think it's going to head in?
So it's quite a used formula. And not to throw shade at it, but literally thriller, horror, rom-com.
Mm-hmm.
I could sort of think of three or four. I'm sure they don't play out the same, where that base concept is similar. There's like a rom-com with
trope.
Yeah, but it's a fun one, and it's an open one. It's it's like saying there's a cellar door and there's something in it, and you're not allowed to go down. Like I guess that's the reason you sort of chose it loosely as the open film challenge.
Yeah,
because you could go in a number of directions. Exactly. You say this film is Korean? Did you say?
Yeah, it's Korean. Yeah.
It sounds intriguing. Is it a ghost story?
Not, in a sense.
I guess I'm thinking of it in the vein of, I'm going to use the Americanized names, The Grudge and The Ring.
Okay.
And just those two. all that type of...
It's definitely got feels for those types of films. And it taps into the horror. It taps into adventure and detective-like stuff. And many, to use the same word again, tropes that you see in Korean films, especially dark Korean films. There's some well-trodden paths.
Is it quite a slow burner?
No. I wouldn't say slow burner. It doesn't have a lot of action, but it's always moving forward at a pace.
Okay.
So, based on that basic setup, we have the lady who is in the present in 2019, arrives at her childhood house with no phone and finds this cordless phone, and it rings. And obviously, this is already bizarre because this is a cordless phone that hasn't been charging for as far as we can tell, covered in dust and it looks really old. But yet it's working, and she very much just is a bit perplexed by it, but answers it. And all she hears is this woman on the other end, Young Suk, screaming that her mother is trying to drown her. Can you help me? Can you help me?
Is she? Sorry, is she a child on the other end of the line?
At this point, we don't know because we don't ever see her. We only hear the phone call. But
okay.
You would say she was around 16, 17, I would say, at this point. And she thinks nothing of this first phone call, hangs up, puts phone down, nuisance caller, that sort of thing. And then again, I think the following day, there's another phone call around the same time. And this time the woman's screaming and whimpering into the phone that she is in fear of her life and she feels like her mother's going to kill her. And these phone calls happen more frequently over a period of 3 or 4 days until the point where the woman who's receiving the phone calls, Kim, starts to do some research, let's say, and look into the previous of the house. And I think this is it. She overhears a number or name said during one of the phone calls that she receives from the daughter of the mother's name, I think it is. And she researches into the mother's name and finds out that the daughter was killed by a fanatical mother who believed her daughter was possessed. So she keeps receiving these phone calls. The woman's like, she's trying to burn me, she's trying to drown me, and things are getting worse and worse with every phone call. The woman does this research and then relays the message to this woman in the past that she thinks her mother's going to try and kill her because she's from the future. She can see this sort of thing.
Right.
She knows what's going to happen. She's able to look back and tell the other woman what's happening. So that's how they come to the connection that these two things are.
So are they, when she phones, are they conversing? Like they're speaking back and forth?
Yeah, they do after a while. After like the first 3 or 4 phone calls, they start to talk because when she does the whimpering and murmuring one, they get into a bit of discourse and then she can hear her mother coming, so she hangs up.
Okay.
So yeah, so they have this back and forth. There's a bit of detective work done in the present day, and she works out that the mother will kill this daughter on this day. And she also works out at the same time that in the past, in the house, because they're in the same house. I don't know if I've mentioned this before.
Yeah, so she's staying there in the house now, like full time.
When she moves into the house, it's only a couple of years from now, or like a few months, basically. And in that period of time, her father's still alive, who is dead, as I'm allowed.
Oh, okay.
In the present time, he died in a fire in the house that was caused by the mother, and she's always blamed her mother for this death.
That's a nice setup.
Yes. So you suddenly get the woman being in the past being hunted or almost oppressed and controlled by the psychotic mother that is going to die in a couple of days. And this woman in the past, with the knowledge that her dad is alive in the past, and this woman can do something about it. So she ends up talking to the woman in the past. The woman in the past agrees to do it, and she escapes from the mother out for a bedroom window, some clever timing and stuff like this, goes on a journey in a coach across the country and saves or averts the fire that kills the husband. Yeah.
So are we visually following her now, or are we always...
both timelines? We see both timelines.
Oh, okay, we do. Okay.
Yeah, we see the woman on the bus. She is obviously a teenager at this point. She's about 18. And you see her travelling back and forth. And yes, she gets a beating when she returns from the mother, but she's done good and she feels really pleased about it. And the woman in the past is trying to tell the woman in the future about what's going to happen to her, but she doesn't want to know. She's like, I don't want to know what's coming up to me, what's going to happen to me. But then she saves her dad. And
so you mean that the other way around, right?
No, the girl in the past refused the knowledge of what's going to happen to her from the girl in the future.
Yes, sorry, that's right.
Now, I've just got to remember when she drops this piece of information, but basically because she went back and saved the father, or averted the fire that was caused by the mother, father is then alive in the present. So you see this sequence where the woman in 2019, all of her world starts to fracture and shatter around her, and there's like a shift in reality, and it's and then the phone starts ringing, and it's her father. She picks it up and she answers it, and her father's on the end phone. She starts crying, and she meets her mum and her dad, and they're all together, and they're all really happy. And she doesn't relay any of this. She's just in shock, and she just takes it as a given. You don't really explore what would have happened, why, that past where he wasn't alive and then all of a sudden he is alive, what happened in that
right case. The parallax.
It's just he's suddenly there and everything else fits before it, and she retains all knowledge of everything but accepts it as it is. And as a thank you, she warns the woman in the past that she's going to die on this date because her mother's probably likely to do something to her. And then they continue their conversations over time, but the woman in the present becomes more and more distant from those phone calls because she's got her father back, so she's spending more time with her father. And the woman in the past takes a bit of sort of like, that ow, that hurt.
Bit of a sting.
I've done this for you, and now you're ignoring me.
Feeling a bit used.
You're my only friend in a situation. She then, because she's ignoring her in the future, when her and her father come to visit the house when she's 8 years old, and the mother is looking after the house and they're trying to sell it and move away, the father and the daughter, the 8-year-old future girl, come to the house and she sees them, and you suddenly see this sort of flicker of something in her eyes, the woman in the past on the other end of the phone, and it makes you a little bit unsettled. You don't see what, she just sort of in the background, she talks to them briefly and then she steps out and she just watches through the banisters and that sort of thing.
The 8-year-old her?
Yeah.
Right.
No, the 8-year-old her is with the father.
Right.
That has been saved by the other woman.
Right.
But the woman in the past that we're talking to is now in the house.
Oh, I see. They're syncing up in time.
Being ignored by the future her, but she can see the past her in the present time. In her time, yeah?
And we know she's feeling a bit slighted.
Yes.
By this 8-year-old in the future.
She phones her again while her father's there, and the daughter's there, and she plays the phone call to her, and she can hear them in the background and that sort of thing. I'm now confused myself even because it gets quite twisted. But it turns out basically that the mother. The daughter in the past kills the mother and survives, okay?
Oh,
and
okay.
The future is like, I've done good, she's done good, everybody's done good, we're all fine. Let's move on with our lives. But the woman in the past doesn't want to let go of the girl in the future so easily. And it turns out that the girl in the past is actually a complete psychopath. And the mother thought she was possessed and was trying to do exorcism on her. which is why she was drowning her, which is why she was burning her, which is why she was suffocating her and controlling her, because she believed she was possessed by demons. And you could argue she is, because she's a really nasty piece of work. And by saving her, the ramifications are what happens for the next 2/3 of the film, basically.
Oh, so, wait, so all of this is in the first quarter?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow, okay. So all of that is kind of the setup.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, crikey, I thought we were coming to the conclusion.
No, that is basically the setup for the last 2/3 of the film, which are, I'm not going to go into too much depth because I don't want to spoil it, but I think that's a really good setup for what comes after it, because it wasn't what I expected. What I expected was what we got in the first third.
Right.
With based on that synopsis, which is what I knew going in, and you establish that within the first, I'd say 10-15 minutes, and then the next 10-15 minutes is father being saved, killing of the mother, and then the slow turn and the woman into this psychopath, because she just is suddenly given all this freedom to be out and do whatever she wants. So she ends up going out and
doing some damage.
Her thirst for the grotesque, I guess, killing people and murder and mayhem. And every time she does something in the past, it affects the future.
Right.
So there's a man who delivers strawberries to the girl in the future and her mother, who loves the strawberries, but because he gets killed by the girl of the past, he so no longer is there in the future, but the woman that's getting the phone calls can remember all of this. So where she goes to the strawberry farm is suddenly derelict and nobody else can remember, and all this sort of thing. So it plays out very, very cleverly and is exceptionally dark from this point onwards.
Oh, really? It goes places and it runs with it.
Especially the ending. It's got one of those typically not twisty endings, but you get to the ending and then it's like there's a credit and then there's a kicker of but what?
Oh, like to be continued potentially.
Well, not even that, not to be continued, just a
FYI.
Yeah. Was it a nice happy ending or was it this ending?
Is it a surprise ending? Not necessarily the post-credits scene, but the climax of the film.
It's interesting because basically the two narratives get closer and closer together. And because she survived, she's now alive in the future timeline. So she can appear, the more happened in the past, the more it structures the direction of the future and that sort of thing.
For the sake of simplicity, do they use the same actress or do they try and age her?
Oh no, they use the same actress, yeah.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, they just age her. She gets more and more worn looking. But what's really nice is some of the effect sequences. Not that there's many, but whenever there is a ripple in time, there is, depending on the impact to the future around the woman, the shift and ripple is bigger or smaller. So it might be just a small judder and things will change or shift like this, like a fractaling. But if it's a massive one, like everything just goes.
Oh, okay.
Rebuilds, which is quite cool. But it is a very dark. The actresses are brilliant in it, and I think the director, who I looked up some of his work beforehand, and he's done one other film and a TV series. So, considering this is, as far as my research goes, his second film, it's really well shot.
Yeah, it feels pretty solid and modern and slick. That sounds.
And like you said at the beginning of this, it is well-trodden tropes. We have seen this 1,000 times or a handful of times before. Frequency being one, the cooler, obviously, then this and the one that you mentioned prior to that restarting. But it does put its own spin on them, and I do like a good dark Korean film. They're always dark and gritty.
I was going to say they're all dark. That describes all of them.
I was very impressed. But I don't want to go all the way to the end because what comes after this setup is really...
Does the phone or the connection ever get explained?
No.
It just is.
It is, yeah.
It's just the vehicle, and then we can sort of move on quick enough. And I'm guessing
that sort of thing, like that as a device in storytelling, like, does that bother you that things like that don't get explained?
I mean, it's hard to say. It sounds like the film moves quick enough that almost forget to care. Or it's
Yeah.
like it's not really about the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, I don't know, like many time traveling films, the vehicle is kind of irrelevant,
Yeah.
as it were.
But that doesn't bother you in a film. Like it's all down to suspension of
I
disbelief.
mean, it depends on the film, really.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to say, no? I guess we never get a reason why she can feel the parallax and remember both worlds, but no one else can. There's just a connection between them because someone has to.
I started saying it that I suddenly thought, hang on, why is that happening? Why does that? Why is it that way? But again, it doesn't really explore it, no, or explain it anyway.
Like purposefully, or there's potentially a deleted scene which does connect it. That was cut off.
No, I don't think it's
Necessary.
Again, it comes back to does it matter? For the sake of telling a story, do we need to know the very logic behind every decision or every storytelling beat? It's the MacGuffin, I guess, and
the more you define it, the more it can kill it. Often.
Yeah. Leave it open to interpretation.
Or just sweep it under the rug and hope no one asks those questions.
Yeah. Because the holes, I guess you would call these things, wouldn't you? Yeah.
But so quite often they
with holes, but if you think too deeply about it. But if you just want a good old school pulpy Korean dark gritty horror sci-fi film, the Cool's got you.
Is it gory? When it sounds like there's a lot of violence incoming. Is it bloody and gory?
No, not really. There's a sequence towards the end that's quite. It's gory, but it's mostly off-camera gore. There's
not visual.
No, not really. You don't see the guts of people hanging off the edge of cliffs or anything. I highly recommend watching it for anybody that likes Korean films or films in general that cover this type of topic and trope. Because
it sounds firmly in the horror world.
Yes, yeah, I would say so. I mean, she's a serial killer, but there's not necessarily an awful lot of on-screen horror. It's more
just atmosphere.
When I first realised that she was actually nuts, that's when I was like, oh, that was good. Didn't see that come in.
Like it's a good mid or early twist reveal.
Yes, exactly. Although if you look too closely at the pictures and posters and marketing material from it, it gives it away all over it. But I did.
Is that easy to say after?
And well, I'm looking at
what's it called? The Caller.
The Cool, CALL.
2020.
See, I haven't seen the poster that is connected to the wiki page.
There's one with like a bunch of lines, like fragmented. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm not sure I quite would have guessed it. Just looking at this without any pre-knowledge, I'm not quite sure I would have known. I guess there's hints, but it's just not a picture of her, stabbing a guy in the face.
No.
At least the one I'm looking at.
It's just have you seen the one where there's like the woman in the middle and then there's a half?
Yeah, it sort of fragments outwards.
Yeah. So that, for me,
it's a bit too heavy.
Is a giveaway.
But do you feel like it needs to let you know that it's going to be some kind of horror?
Yeah, I guess so. But the picture I saw was of a woman. Somebody sat in it. This is what sold it to me on Netflix. Was that somebody sat in a chair under a white sheet, and then she was stood in the room with the phone to her head, and that was it. And it just said The Call. And I was like, "Oof, that looks good." And that's all I knew about going into it. So I had no idea that this woman who was being tortured by her mother was going to turn out to be evil. And when you get that reveal, it's like, oh wow, yeah, okay. Now
Does it?
Go with this.
At one point, you were saying the girl in the past refuses to listen to what's going to happen to her.
Yeah, she turns down she initially turns down the chance to avert her fate.
How come? Like, does it feel natural and organic?
I think at the point you get to that happens, I was under the assumption that she was all but given up on any hope of a semblance of life. It's only when she then goes and does the good deed of saving the father that things start to shift and change in her. And I just can't quite remember why she says no, and then what it is that makes her say yes. Like, that's what I've forgotten. There's no reason why she should say no. Please don't tell me. But
I guess it's just because she's literally calling up for help as the kickoff for the film.
But yeah, I think I recommend it.
You've sold it. I think I'll definitely try and check it out sometime in between my Star Trekking.
Yeah, I would give it an 8. An 8.
8 out of 10. That's pretty good. I have a question. If you could change anything, is there anything you would change within this film?
Oof.
If you could just be like a massive media mogul with millions of dollars, and you've seen this first cut, but it's not out yet, and they go, what do you think?
What do you think? Oh, no, that's a very hard question to answer.
I guess I should have asked at the beginning.
I mean, would I like to see more of the deaths and the gore and stuff like that? Not really, because it's the impact that it has in the future that gives it the weight, if you see what I mean. Because the guy in the strawberry guy is a lovely guy, really friendly, really nice, just grows strawberries. And then this woman kills him senselessly, and he's suddenly gone in the future. And you're like, oi. And then she's
right.
Find out why people don't remember him and where he is. And
I guess it feels something double tragic that there's no memory of him. For her and her alone.
A nasty thriller.
It sounds like this director could do a good The Shining Girls.
Yeah,
that's not treading the same ground.
Another series that I like that's similar to this is called Possessed.
What's that about?
That's about a detective and a shaman hunting a serial killer that can jump bodies.
Oh, okay, then no, I think I'd remember that one. I did try to watch the one in a building apartment.
Sweet Home.
Yeah. Did you get far into that one?
Yeah, I've got a couple of episodes in, I think 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think same. Sort of got worse as it went along. No, it's sort of, to be honest, it got rubbish.
It didn't quite get to rubbish for me, but
like it's not. It didn't feel like it was building on anything. Like it just stopped dead and just tread the same ground for like 3 episodes in a row. With really little extra reveal. Hey, we're going to wrap it up around there. I want to thank you for listening and I hope you enjoyed. Join us again next episode, and until then, support your local cinemas and have a great day.